Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are kicking off an exciting week with human resources, one of the most untalked about, but should be always applauded parts of every business. And this is the part of the business that makes sure everything keeps going, make sure everything is in line, make sure everything is set in terms of regulations, hires, everybody is in their place. The ducks are in a row, if you will. We're going to be talking all about human resources and the technology that is powering and changing how human resources looks for all businesses, from the biggest to the smallest. There's been a few companies that have recently started announcing new payroll systems, new HR management systems. Blockchain has been mentioned heavily in this, along with artificial intelligence and several other technologies. So we're going to talk to some of our guests today, hear a little bit about what's happening in this world, where the opportunities are, and also, of course, as we do here on every episode of VCTV, where you should be thinking about from an investment standpoint and a building standpoint. So stay tuned because we've got some exciting guests to share us everything that's happening in this world. But before we start, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, make sure you click that big red subscribe button to tune in every single day to all episodes of VCTV. And if you'd like to be on a show like today with our guests or others, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you to share your thoughts and insights about different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. And entrepreneurs, this is also a place for you, as we have a virtual stage for you to get up on, to pitch us as investors to get real-time feedback on your company, product, or service, along with building foundational relationships with us as investors and founders and our entire live audience. Do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. Last but not least, a big thank you to that outstanding team at LATOKEN and Maria for making VCTV possible every single day and bringing us all together here in this virtual environment that we love and live so much. And with that, let's go ahead and kick it off. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. With that, Gary, welcome to the show, my friend, the Grandmaster of Artificial Intelligence, the one and only, driven by data, powered by electricity, all artificially, but computer-driven, Mr. Gary Fowler.
The wizard. You are the wizard. I was watching The Wizard of Oz and I thought, here he is on the great stage of Zoom. I am here. It's great to be here. My name is Gary Fowler and I'm a serial entrepreneur. And I actually created one of the top 10 HR tech companies. It's one of mine. It's called Evo, YBA.ai. And that's one of the near unicorn status companies in HR tech. So I've done 16 companies. Click Software, I was on the original team of, sold for $1.35 billion about 16 months ago now. I love AI in all kinds of ways. And obviously on HR tech today, we've got some challenging problems because people are working remotely. How do we keep them happy? How do we understand when they're stressed? How do we understand those relationships? And so this is a great topic and I really look forward to it today. And I'm the CEO and president of GSD, Get Shit Done Venture Studios. We curate the top AI companies to help them go global from anywhere to Silicon Valley as a port to the rest of the world. And here we go.
Here we go. All right. Perfect kickoff next. Telly, welcome back. It's a pleasure to see you. It's been a bit, but welcome back to the show. A little intro background for everybody.
Okay, so my name is Telly Onu. I'm based in St. Kitts and Nevis. I am the co-founder for Beyond Capital Markets. It's a digital asset and investment firm. And we've been also building a digital financial market infrastructure. I'm also co-founder for ProHouse Labs, which is a fintech incubator in the US. And under the incubator, we have a number of portfolio companies. Unfortunately, not yet. We're not in AI yet, but we have some companies that kind of connect with it. One of them is Alt School, which is a tech school for alternative and digital finance. And through that, we're seeing the need for connecting with organizations in terms of facilitating job placements and apprenticeships. I wear a number of hats. I'm also the head of Bantu Blockchain Foundation, and this is a protocol that's been in stealth mode. We've just we're really on mainnet right now, and we're going live in December. Actually, this week we're getting some beta testers. So I'm excited. It's an infrastructure. It's an intelligent blockchain infrastructure. Uh, Listen, it's run by a team of 27 really magnificent people. Of course, everyone on the team is connected to Africa, whether in the diaspora or African. So it's just going to be like the first unique indigenous platform. And it's different from the other protocols in that baked into its infrastructure you have a lot of embedded solutions. So this is something to empower humanity. So even though it's for Africa, it's really to empower humanity. And I think we'll be the first ones to have on board when we launch some banks already. So we have some institutions already pre-onboarded. So that's it for now. In the next week, you'll probably hear more on that.
I can't wait. Maria, get excited. We might get a little exclusive here on VCTV. This is going to be exciting. Welcome back, Telly. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Jose, welcome back. It's a pleasure. Your hat looks outstanding today. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
So thank you, Kyle. Happy to be on your show today once more. And happy to be with this fabulous panel together with Telly and Gary Fowler. So I'm Jose Grasa. I've been a serial entrepreneur now for more or less like 40 years. I've been building brands all my life in different verticals, consumer market, and also in technology. 26 years of business angel and more or less 3 years of VC. For the last 20 years, I've been focused essentially on software development with very specific backgrounds. Today, a lot of these softwares, they have artificial intelligence and machine learning, but it's not only limited to that. I'm focused essentially on one niche area, which is a very big one, which I call business inclusion, and it's run by a social market economy digital platform. What we are trying to achieve is more or less, well, that's what I always say is like, look, the Forbes 500 CEOs, you know, they make decisions, they don't do administrative tasks or anything else. And what we are trying to build today is getting that learning curve down and getting these companies very fast to a profitable position. And the only way that can happen is when they start stopping executing and making the right decisions. So that's what we are focused on. And yeah, I'm very excited about human resource because more and more we are looking out for soft skills and not for hard skills. And selection of soft skills, that's a tricky business.
Absolutely. Well, as you're excited about HR, let's also get excited about HR. Let's talk a little bit about what's happening. Again, this is an area and a department within most businesses that goes, you know, everyone walks past, if you will. It goes unlooked and forgotten about in most cases, which is unfortunate. But there's a ton of technology and a ton of work being put into this area of business to make sure that more happens and it's also more streamlined. And Telly, I want to start with you. What are you seeing with the current state of human resources or HR technology from your standpoint?
Well, we're seeing a lot more companies getting into the applying AI to recruitment. Because I mean, you know, when you're recruiting, when you're doing recruitment, it's really focused on people. It's very manual procedure. Even though they have technology, forms, and systems, the data is massive. But what's really happening, especially since we've had COVID and since there's that shift to everybody working remotely, the recognition that we need more skills, just as Jose said, the soft skills is extremely high. We need other skills as well, skills in new areas, digital finance, more infrastructure and stuff like that. And it's really difficult to pour through manual forms. So you do need to apply a layer of artificial intelligence to kind of suck up that data and give you like real time. You should have real time matching of who's in your database. So we're seeing a lot more investments in the space of AI. There's a interesting company I'm looking at, AI sourcing, or it's a service, AI sourcing, based out of Singapore. And they're doing exactly that, creating a totally new recruitment service that focuses especially on those areas. And also in the area of digital finance, you have um, key skills that people are looking at. So I'm also seeing some, I would say, traditional companies also starting to incorporate, well, slowly getting into AI, but getting into AI and applying it to psychometric tools. So I think that's really going to be a big trend because, as you say, you need to know the person like intimately and know what to know and predict their behaviors for you to kind of, hire them. So while
Well,
there are lots of jobs,
and,
mhm.
and real quick, Telly, I just want to throw in there, which is also more important than ever as we get into more of a distributed workforce, right? So not just seeing in the office, right? Seeing walking past someone, you can pick up some feels, but you can't pick up everything. But now going into this distributed workforce, we may be moving into in some split fashion. That type of data and insight is more important than ever to understand how people are feeling or not feeling in certain cases as well. So continue. I apologize. I just wanted to comment
Well,
on
I
that.
mean, no, oh, well, that's fine. So yeah, you have to know it's really key insights, and the fact that it's really a shift in the culture. You have some traditional entities that really for them, seeing you in the office is power. So now they feel a lot powerless. So they need a lot more encouragement and a lot more data to see exactly the kind of person they're tuning. And then the last thing is because there is a high demand while jobs are being lost, okay, there are still jobs being created significantly in a lot of automated areas like cybersecurity and so on. And it really requires a type of professional. So, in order to really fill those resource gaps, you have to start really looking seriously at AI, and also for applications as well. The quantum of application, just pouring through that, it's really inhumanly possible when you're dealing with it in a manual process.
You're spot on, Gary. I'm coming to you on this one too. I mean, talking about data, talking about AI, how this all plays such an impactful role, as Telly mentioned. What are you seeing as the current state of HR and human resources tech? I mean, you also come from this world, founding a very successful company and continuing to grow. What's happening, and then also where does AI play a very impactful role in all this?
Yeah, let's paint a picture, Kyle. So, I mean, look at where we are today. COVID's going up and not down, right? It's record levels. So, and just the trends and where we are, 55% of businesses offer some form of remote work globally. 18%, fully 18% today, full-time basis. And if you look at Silicon Valley, it's probably 75%. I mean, a lot of people in tech-oriented areas are doing it. Apple, Google, I mean, you name it. And the other part is people say they're not more productive, but in reality, 77% of telecommuters are reported being more productive, right? And so at the same time, think about the time and efficiencies. How much time in terms of travel? I don't know if, like me in Silicon Valley, it takes me up to 2 hours to go to my office each way. So I blow 4 hours in 4 to 5 lane traffic going into the office. So how much time is that? It's crazy. So around the world, on average, companies can save up to $11,000 US dollars for each employee that works remotely half time. 11,000. And the thing that's really amazing is they just did a recent survey. They said 99% of remote employees globally want to continue working telecommuting in the future. It took them a while to pick it up, but now they want to do it. So I think that we're in a special time. I can tell you directly in terms of our business, Eva.ai is one of the top. I don't want to say the top because I don't know where we are today, but one of the top HR tech companies in the world, AI. And our business is 38 times inbound interest at the beginning of this pandemic. And of course, now, so the challenges we have is think about it. People are geographically dispersed. They're no longer time around the cooler, around the coffee machine to talk or going out to lunch. How in the world can we understand what's happened to that employee? So having the capabilities to be able to understand how to and think about it. I mean, just like reviews of employees today, reviews are done what, twice a year, once a year? But how do you know what's happening with that employee every day, right? It should be like you should understand so you can course correct. Well, on our side with Eva, we can tell up to 6 months in advance when a person is going to leave a company. Now, think about how much it costs. Like, could cost 2.5 times a high valued employee's salary if they leave because of lost productivity, problems with teams. So there's a huge, huge impact. And at the same time, this as a remote employee, how do you understand if somebody has stress? How do we able to deal with that? How do we recommend to the bosses that this person needs to have some attention, or we're going to risk losing them, or in terms of the relationship with customers? Think about it, and the dynamics between departments. So all those kind of things, those kind of areas. And, 2 years ago, when I pivoted the company to move into remote HR tech with my partner, David Yang, people thought it was, I said, let's move our AI over. And they thought it was pretty funny, but they're not laughing anymore because it is the time. We need to do a better job across the board, right? It's all about, if you look at where we are in terms of artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, unsupervised, semi-supervised, we need to practice what we preach. We need to use the technology to help us make better decisions. It's like across the board. Why don't we have data points? If it's water that's non-potable water in a well, why do I have to know it only when I sell a house, right? It's crazy. So we need to have that data. Now with the thing with HR's had been in a dinosaur world in the past, because here we are, our most valuable asset as a human capital, but we probably don't treat it the best because those people are not nurtured, right? And for the most part. So I think that, now that we're able to train and I can drop it down into granular detail about HR tech, but let's suffice it to say is now's the time. We've digitally transformed. People have now started to feel comfortable working from home and like it because, you're a lot more productive. I don't know about you, Kyle, but I have literally meetings starting at 4:00 in the morning and I can go to 11 o'clock at night. And honestly, I really enjoy it because I don't feel as shitty as I did before of traveling 4 hours in a car.
Look, I completely agree. Now, the time thing, I want to bring that up. I mean, for us, we're very fortunate to have the flexibility that we do and being able to work those hours. However, 2 points. Point one, that doesn't bode well for everybody, right? We're already seeing statistics that the average person right now here in 2020, again, this may be an asterisk, but it does set a stage for going forward in this next decade, are working more hours in the day. Now, that commute time, while understood, it's not the greatest. That also allows for a kind of a balanced day, if you will. And now if people are working remotely, working longer, that's actually adding stress, adding anxiety, which plays into the second point of if we're virtually connected. I'm working on Slack and text message and Zoom. These types of platforms provide a different level of interaction and a different need for tools, which we're going to come back to in just a moment. But before we do, Jose, current state, what are you seeing happening from your viewpoint, having been in this world as well? And Telly, I saw you shaking your head, so I'm coming around to that full picture here in just a minute. But Jose, I want to make sure you get your comments in as well.
So we are addressing quite some different aspects, okay? And I would like to just cut it in some pieces. So the first piece is that effectively we are more productive. That's what it is today. The second piece is that we have more time available. So I don't think it's a big problem if we do a little bit more, because on average probably we are working less on total. We'll put it like this. You have 8 hours work, 4 plus 4, 1 hour to get your meal, and let's say 1 hour to drive up and down, right? So on total, you are like more or less like 11 hours, working, whatever you do. So if you have a discipline and if you have the tools, and I'll come up to the tools in 30 seconds, then eventually 1 more hour work, will not damage you at all, okay? Because, it's an extra, okay? And still you're better off. Now the tools is a huge problem. The tools is like this. You have a myriad of huge amount of tools. You're overwhelmed every second with a lot of data that you cannot process. Either it's on messaging, it's on your email, it is on your storage, it doesn't matter. It happens that you're on a meeting and at the same time, messaging comes in and an email comes in. So handling all this is a very tough problem. And you can only handle it. Either you have more stuff or you have AI behind it to process all this data and put it in an order of priority. And that's where I'm coming. Look, this remote work for us, and this is a newie for you. So this remote work, right, is not about remote work. It's about remote lifestyle. Okay. So what we at BizMoney have figured out is that we do everything remotely. Remote stuff, remote business, remote lifestyle, remote banking, remote management, doesn't matter. So what we are going into is what we call a remote lifestyle. And that remote lifestyle, okay, is overwhelmed with such an amount of data. But it brings us closer to the biggest problem, which has never been solved, okay, by any company. Now, the real threat of cybersecurity, right, it comes from inside. So you have a huge amount of security breaches that come from the outside. And we have been very well in protecting everything which comes from the inside. But we have been very bad in everything which is protected from the inside. The real danger, 99%, comes from inside your company and not from the outside. And that brings me to the next point, okay, that we are talking today, is about how do you select your stuff, right? So you should give more attention to the soft skills and checking if this person is somebody that can have a security breach, yes or no, if it's trustful, if he has the skill sets, yes or no, but at the end, it comes up to character, okay? So when we select our staff inside BizMoney, the first thing we do is we look at who are you. We don't care about your skills. We care about the person that you are. And once we understand who you are, then we check, okay, are you a fit for our team? Do you fit in? Do you have the same mentality? If you fit into our team, will that be easy? Or are you going to break that team up? Because the risk is that one person can break the whole team up, right? You have a very smooth team and suddenly it's broken, right? Okay.
Well, culture plays a bigger role than ever right now. I mean, you look at a company like GitLab, who did a fantastic job of putting out a process and set of procedures for those looking to do remote and distributed teams earlier in the spring. And then you had 37 Signals that also put something out, who created Basecamp and other great applications. You had a number of these companies that had already started going distributed. And the key thing amongst all their documentation, amongst all the books, all the articles, all the advice, culture. Because to your point, Jose, and I apologize for interrupting, is that if you don't have culture right, you don't continue to monitor that culture ongoing in a distributed world, to Jose's point, one person can ruin the whole show. And it can very easily go from this is a great team on with a great crew, the boat is sailing great, to we are in rough waters and game over very fast. And Jose, I'll let you finish, but you're perfectly on point.
And that brings us to what we do at BizMoney today, is something that we do, which is called AI internal security. Okay. And that's the most important thing. So if you have a good profile of somebody and you know how they behave, right? then you can put that AI to work for you. Same way, you know, banks do more or less when they have a red flag for something. Doesn't mean it's bad, it's just a red flag. It needs to be researched further. Now, this also is not only about your internal stuff, it's also about your business partners. So at the same level, right, you need to bundle an X amount of business partners and people that are going to interact with you that also more or less have the same mindset, right? So it's all about, you know, the remote lifestyle, which is maybe new. It's not new. It was already here a long time ago. It just gets a different format, okay? And so I just broke it up in different pieces, but it's all, let's say, add-ons at the end.
Yeah.
Now, just finishing here. Remember the following. So we are all going to get more or less remote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that means that we have a remote lifestyle, we have a remote banking, we have a remote business, we have a remote, let's say, work, we have a remote interaction with people, and we have a remote messaging or information sharing, right? The only thing that keeps you on the same track, which is not adapted, and it's a real problem, is your housing. Now, housing today, the new houses, I can tell you, the new houses in 10 years will not be the houses that we have today. And there will be a big shift in the housing setup and all the communications that you need to have a real good lifestyle in your house. Because whatever you do, okay, the future is that you will be more in-house and less out-house.
Well, and in addition to that, as I'll add on to transition to this next part, is we also see this emergence of, you know, again, the flexible work day or work week, but also instead of work from home, more work to close to home is what they're saying is the next trend, which I agree with and curious to hear everyone's thoughts, where we may not be going into the commute Gary and I have had to deal with that is the worst, where you're driving for an hour or two to get somewhere that should only take 20 minutes, but instead you're driving shorter times and commuting to shorter pieces to get out of the home and go to places of similar workspace or office space to collaborate with people. But nonetheless, culture is important. Being able to work with people, being able to monitor people in a good, healthy environment. These are all very important factors. So to you all, and Telly, I want to start with you on this one, as I saw you shaking your head, is we're in this distributed work mode now, and this is going to be a trend for many companies, not all, for many companies in the next 10 years. How do we look at leveraging HR and HR technology with the tools of today, with the Slacks, with the Zooms, and the many other platforms that may exist? Because if we're not in person, how do you still monitor what's going on, and again, keep that one person happy and healthy to keep a good, solid culture throughout?
Yeah, great question. I'm seeing a number of different platforms and solutions that are designed for like business workflows and management system and productivity systems. So, for example, I mean, Microsoft and IBM's, they were big in AI back in the day. And now I see greater integration in some of even their business applications. They're doing like crazy updates every day. You're now seeing Cortana in the case of Microsoft, being a little bit more intuitive, giving you updates and more insights on your behavior. And giving the employer, you know, the ability to track and see what each person is doing. So there are a lot of solutions out there that are not necessarily even, you know, decentralized, but you know, softwares that allow you to track. In fact, the other day I saw another one that's I think they're currently in an IPO process. I can't remember the name right now, but their focus is all about their business is all about providing the employer a dashboard where they could see and monitor. And I thought it was a bit intrusive in that they have like cameras and stuff like that so they can get shots of their employers working. So obviously that then when you look at some of the models that are evolving, you have to also query, okay, are we kind of skating on a thin line of privacy here? So within the context of more, you know, decentralized using blockchain and that whole decentralized technologies. That's also quite interesting in that, uh, you know, there are also some apps or dApps coming up that kind of focusing around for privacy and personal data and kind of layering giving insights but not necessarily sharing all the person's information, which is kind of really cool. um, yeah, I see employers are starting to find new solutions. A lot of startups, a lot more investment is going to all these back office platforms and knowledge management systems. um, Within the space of knowledge management as well, AI is playing a really critical role in terms of really gathering some data points. But you also have the issue of legacy. You know,
Mhm.
some of the solutions that are being deployed today are being tweaked or upgraded, but not necessarily fit for purpose. So you're going to have I think we're going to have like a explosion of a number of solutions, but eventually they're going to peter out, and those that are much easily streamlined, not as costly and not as heavy to manage are going to kind of phase in. Then we're also seeing another trend, not necessarily solutions from platform or technology perspective, but from a business model innovation perspective, whereby again coming to this remote work from home or work near home solution where employers are actually starting to incorporate it in the benefits, right? Providing specific benefit packages where they can actually where their employees can actually take these benefits and actually find a place. So I agree with Jose. You know, when you're looking at the entire value chain of what's happening, real estate is huge. I mean, if those people who invest in real estate can't see where real estate is heading, I can see people having two offices, like their home and an office, you know, and instead of that Airbnb for personal and living, people are going to be renting, you know, their own units, and so that's going to be more distributed. I think obviously there are going to be models that are, you know, more affordable, but we're definitely seeing that. We're definitely seeing the whole package of work from home, work abroad, because
Hmm.
now you have remote workers distributed all over the world. You know, we're having people who are like, oh, when can I come to St. Kitts and Nevis and chill? I mean, they only just need internet. It's beautiful. You get to be on the beach and work, you know. It's just clean air, especially being locked up on a lockdown for so long. They just want to be out and they want to work. So you're
Hmm.
also starting to see a migration of people moving around. So I get coming back to that. The culture is really important. And I see culture from two sides: culture from the perspective of capturing certain types of implicit bias. So, yeah, you know, on the one hand, we do need to make sure that those who are programming the AI can put enough data sets that capture some of their cultural essence. If not, you know, you have an issue with implicit bias. But then on the
Hmm.
flip side, where you had traditional biases from, you know, face to face type of recruitment and your traditional interviewing and stuff, that's eliminated. So, from a diversity and inclusion perspective, people who are underserved, you know, from different cultures can actually get increase their chances. So it's a double-edged sword. But what's also interesting when you layer diversity inclusion is when you're looking at cross-border. We're in a
Hmm.
global space. You got someone from India, you have someone from Jamaica, you have someone from Pakistan, and everyone's working for, say, a company in the US, right? And so, where I see AI again, you know, unlocking real value is really in being able to capture these cultural nuances. Some of them are slight, but they make a big difference because saying, when I came to live to sing in St. Kitts and Nevis, people will ask me, you know, so how are you? How do you like St. Kitts? I say it's all right. And I wonder, you know, their attitudes were like, okay, what the hell is she saying? Until someone told me, all right means it's shitty. I said, really? Well, in St. Vincent, I mean, this is another island, an hour away. All right means all right. So,
Mhm.
having AI capture these nuances, it has to, and then layering machine learning is really, really important. So,
Mhm.
this is the future. This definitely is where a lot more people should, and a lot more talent should be going into.
Mhm.
So, the last thing is I would like to see how we can scale up the pipeline in the areas of AI, and how does that pipeline work in our education system as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Telly. And Gary, I'm coming to you. Let's get into the minutia. Let's look into this. I mean, this is something you've worked on and you've built and you live and breathe and eat. To Telly's point, I mean, we're going to be moving into, and some of us already have, again, these distributed workforces. Culture is no longer just about being in the office and making sure things are moving as a steady ship, and then also how you present yourself to the world, but also you've now got global team members. You've got multiple cultures playing a role in your global culture as a company. You've also got people working in this distributed fashion, close to home, away from home, remote. All this stuff is happening. How does AI really work to start solving this? And maybe throw in, I know you've done a little bit in blockchain and quantum, we've talked about as well. So I'll let you get into the minutia, but Gary, this is all to you. How do we make this happen? Oh, you're on the mute. This is a great comment though. It was awesome. Everyone just loved what you said. So I'm going to give it a big heart, but go for it.
I said, do we have enough time today? So I can tell, I mean, let me just give you an actual scenario. So a company with 4,500 employees, an IT company. So this company, their annual revenue was not growing at the rate. It had been growing at like 32%, went down to about 3.5. And so they were trying to figure out what to do. So they brought in a lot of new employees. Now remember, this is pre-COVID, and then COVID hit. So they decided to bring in some new folks. So they brought in a lot of new employees. They decided to apply organizational network analytics, ONA, and to optimize the team. The challenge with this whole paradigm is that what happened is the new employees came in and they didn't have any connection to the former leaders that had been there. So there was no like communication connection. So it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's a huge deal. So when Eva went down through and analyzed this, that we understood that we could use it to perform this own analysis. And we looked at their passive historic data, and we did it in 2 days. Now imagine there are 4,500 employees of this company. So we understood then who had long tenure. We understood from the blue employees, and then the green, this new wave, the new next one coming out. We looked through 11,000 Slack messages and emails that were sent in the previous 6 months. And we detected who informal leaders are through the communications information. So we can now understand who the new leaders were in the company, and we can understand, the senior manager could understand the data and understand who were the people that they needed to really highlight and put into positions, because they weren't currently in any, for the most part, any management positions of new employees. So what they decided to do is balance a team, and they balanced the team out, made some promotions, applied these O&A results, and in 2 days they after they did this, which actually did in relatively short order, we understood then through the organizational chart, the picture dynamically changed. Communication started in the company. Communication started. Now this is a global company. So we understood who the active decision makers were, both formal and informal, and we understood who the detached formal managers were, and we made some decisions. Decisions could be made about them. Who was communicating, who was not, what kind of work they were doing. So net is the activity dramatically increased in that company. The analysis showed that there was a misalignment between the formal and informal managers, and not only did the existing organizational structure looked like it was asymmetric towards employees with longer tenure, but only 58% of former leaders were really making decisions. Can you imagine? 58%. So what we did is we jointly came up with a plan. So we ran focus groups, prioritized problems. HR team revealed 14 major problems, made structural changes, and the results were the ENPS score increased by 26% for staff. Confidence of managers increased by 31%. There were major reshuffles in the organizational chart to make it more streamlined. The team designed a solution to make better customer contact, and their incoming traffic went up 44%. 44%. Now, the challenge we have today is that, like I said, we hadn't typically gone out for HR and understood what's happening with employees, but now it's more critically important. My partner is a genius, billionaire genius in AI. And one of the things, technologies that came out of that is the system can actually teach itself languages. So the system can broke itself into two parts. One became the student. This is unsupervised AI. One became the student. One became the teacher, and they teach themselves languages. And they would go through and understand. So these advanced systems, and I got to just be careful. I as a co-founder of the company, I know a little bit too much sometimes, but
It's all right.
The deal is this is what's going to happen. So I'm going to paint a picture for you. I'm not going to say it's evil, but I'll paint a picture and then you can make your own innuendos. But imagine a system that was more culturally sensitive and could understand the culture of that country and then also translate the language from one language to another, all in one system, all in one, and understand what the nuances are and what the recommendations could be based on that particular culture. Now
That's
that
amazing.
today is the kind of system we need to have in place. And I'm not saying EVA for all kinds of reasons, but imagine the possibilities.
Possibilities. That's what we heard, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we heard. Possibilities. Didn't hear anything in between, nothing else. Jose, I want to make sure you get some points in here. Anything to add on there?
I was listening very attentive to Telly and Gary. It's super interesting. Obviously, my focus is, although in the same, in a different market level. You know that I've always been talking about business inclusion and that I'm focused on the small guy, right? The self-employed, the micro business owner. And the reason why I do that is because it's about the numbers and the masses, right? So the big companies, although they run the show more or less, they have different problems than the small companies. And what we are trying to do is giving the small companies the same tools that the big companies have. And they don't have the pockets, they don't have the access, right? And the future is also, if you look at universities, right? The way our children learn today, it makes me cry sometimes because how can you today, at 2020, right, with everything is going on, still push these kids to learn by heart, all that stuff, which is not needed. That's the problem. We need kids that understand where to find the data, understand how it works, and make proper decisions, that develop their soft skills, and not learning and spending time on a huge amount of things that eventually, it's fine, it enriches yourself for some time. But at the end, when they go to the labor market, I remember that, and every year I hear this, is that they say, well, we learn so many things and we don't apply anything, right? Because at the end, it's such a huge difference because what you get taught and what you're going to apply. And eventually it takes them an X amount of years and some frustrations because they think, when they come from university, they know everything, right? More, than the older guys. So this is a problem. And then they get to the labor market. And what happens is that people that have on-hands work experience daily, right? They don't need all that university stuff. It's on demand. No. Where we are going with society, okay, is that we need to imagine ourselves, and that's what's going to happen if we want it or not, that we are becoming piece of the puzzle. Okay? Until now, we were, let's say, the whole puzzle, right? We would execute, we would decide, we would learn about it, we would manipulate, and that's over, right? So we are not going to execute, robots are going to take over. We are not going to process all that data because unfortunately our brains are not made to process the huge amount of data that we have. And what is left for us? Well, what for us is left is what our brain initially was constructed for: creativity, essentially, and getting decisions made on a proper way. And we can use all that is around us to help us, to make those right decisions the same way we use a car to get from A to B, because of running, we can run 12 or 13 kilometers an hour. There's no way you can run 100 kilometers or 200. So, and that's how you need to see it. AI, machine learning, software, computers, it's all about here to help you out, to speed up everything for you.
Absolutely. And everyone, Telly, great point. I just saw you dropped in the chat. So this is perfect timing. I want to come to each of you for closing thoughts as we are getting top to the hour. And I know each of you have a lot to say around this, so we'll start it a little early, but closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you? And Jose, thank you for those comments, and Gary for going in depth on a few areas that we'll fill in the gaps on as well. And Telly, why don't you kick us off with your comment in chat? I think you got some great points there. Why don't you go and kick us off of closing thoughts and where we go from here in the next decade, and then of course where everyone can find you online.
Okay, so thanks. Well, I agree with Jose 100%, and he actually touched on a question. Well, something I wanted to touch on, which is the inclusion piece. Yeah, how do we make AI affordable for the masses to access? Because society is moving this way, and on top of that, while we're doing that, you can see there is a shift for a much higher cognitive and higher strategic and creative type of people, individuals. How do we get people to be more strategic, more creative, more innovative? How do we get them to be like kids again, creative, and like Lego and constructing solutions? So I think it's a new type of, I would say, governance, way of uh, collectively problem solving from a very creative standpoint. But in order to do that, you do need education to do that. So I think it's really key. We have to find ways of redesigning our educational systems to be much more practical and pragmatic, that allow for that sort of thinking. And it also implies that employers would have to then invest, while you're recruiting and leveraging AI in many different ways, you have to also focus on reskilling and upskilling, because as I mentioned in the chat, we're looking at the whole dematerialization of human capital, of financial capital. All of these things are going to be in the back end, and we still need people, but you have to be in a different, you have to have a whole new strategic orientation in order to be placed, right? So that is where, for me, access and making sure that employers understand that with AI, you do have to invest in perhaps looking at the gaps, using AI to find the gaps, reskill, upskill, while you're also kind of recruiting new staff. And then, of course, inclusion. So that's where it is. How do you find me? You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm under TV ONU, ONU. And you can also find me on Alt School. That is ALTSSCHOOL.co, altschool.co. And yeah, we partnered with Middlesex University. We have a number of postgraduate certificates. It's a practical program, but we got some, university accreditation for people who want to understand how to leverage digital financial market infrastructures to allow us to enable this whole reorientation and looking at things from a very creative standpoint to manage the future of finance and the economy. Thanks.
Love it. Thank you so much, Telly. Jose, Gary, I want to come to you next. I mean, I know you've got a lot to share as well. Closing thoughts, and then of course, where can everyone find you? You've got a great show as well to plug at the end, but first off, closing thoughts.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, on the Jose Grasa, or on BizMoney, or you can find me here on VCTV. And my closing thoughts are the following. I remember that one day I stayed in Rio, you know, a hotel that is called Gloria. And in that hotel, Gloria, Einstein wrote his theory of relativity. And they have still a piece of the paper, you know, that he wrote down on a piece of paper of the hotel on a note, right? And I was fortunate enough to stay in the room beside him, you know, in the same hotel, not at the same moment, but many years later. And what I would like to say is the following, and I think he hit the nail. It's like this. He said always, real intelligence, right, is not about the data. Real intelligence is about creativity and problem solution. And that's what real intelligence is. So if we as humans, right, want to stay on top and forehead of everything, that's where we need to focus and let the processing, you know, the advice, etc., made by third party, and we make the decisions. And that's how I see it. And that's the business inclusion I want to bring to everybody.
As Telly said, governance, governance, governance. I think that's a great point. Thank you, Jose, as well. And Telly, thank you. Innovation governance. Thank you, Telly, for the correction on that one. Gary, last but not least, closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you? And of course, talk about this awesome, exciting show you've got coming up.
Yeah, sure. I've got an amazing show with incredible, world-class guests tomorrow. So tune in. World-class. And I'll keep it a secret, but you know who it could be. Shh. And anyhow, you can reach me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I've got my Shark Tank Meets the Apprentice on TV. I'm on TV in Bangladesh now. I've got Gary's Picks. I highlight the top companies from around the world, typically AI companies that are just poised to put a dent in the universe. And that happens every other week. So I'm all over the place. And I just wrote an article about Maya, the social influencer I told you about. I actually have an article coming out about her. I have one coming out in Forbes. You know, so we're active right now. And this is the greatest time. That article I wrote about Nikola Tesla's dream comes true, the democratization of opportunities. Think about it, Telly. It doesn't matter where you are. It matters. Now, the access to having a computer is a challenge, because I talk to some of the people I deal with in Africa directly, and there's challenges all over the world. So we need to step it up. But the good news is, you know, some of the people are using phones, right? So we're better than we were. We're not as good as we could be, but we're much better than we were. So we still have challenges, but you know, I have faith in humanity, and we're moving in the right direction.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Empowering humanity is what we should focus on.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
Absolutely.
it. So I look forward to you know, my show tomorrow. Should be really interesting. And by the way, Kyle is one of my guests tomorrow. Yay!
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, I'll be tuning in for sure.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, Gary. And also thank you, Telly and Jose. Thank you. But also we've got VCTV tomorrow, so make sure you tune into that as well. Too many great things, so many great things. Definitely catch all of them as you can. Thank you, Gary. And thank you, Telly, Gary, Jose, for all your thoughts and insights around HR and HR management and technology as well. Again, a very important topic that we all should be paying attention to, and will continue to do so over the next few years as we look towards this big, exciting decade ahead of us as well. And with that being said, if you like what you heard today, audience, thank you so much for tuning in. Click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show like today, joining our outstanding panel of guests. Or if you'd like to join other episodes around different technologies, industries, or regions around the world, reach out to the team and or myself, and we'd love to find the right fit for you. Just as for you as well, entrepreneurs, whether it's to pitch your company, product, or service, we've got a virtual stage here for you to do just that. Get feedback as well from us as investors and founders. Focus on your area, along with building great relationships and getting outstanding exposure to our wonderful live audience. Do reach out again to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right spot for you. And a big thank you to that team and to the entire LATOKEN team for making VCTV possible every single day, along with Maria. And we are going to take a short little break from VCTV here today. We'll be back with you with another episode shortly. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me along with everybody else and all of our guests online 24/7, 365. Look us up